another episode of Reality and You, where we discuss real-life issues. And guess what? We would be looking into another life-threatening crime causing havoc in many countries around the world today. You want to know what that is? Stick around. We'll be right back.
Human trafficking and sex trafficking is modern-day slavery. Young girls are taken away from their homes, away from their families, and their lives are literally taken out of their hands. They are denied the opportunity to choose and define their own future. This serious issue is very, very close to my heart.
You're welcome back. The topic we have for you today is human trafficking. Human trafficking is a form of modern-day slavery. It involves the illegal trade of people for the purpose of forced labor, sexual slavery, or commercial sexual exploitation for the trafficker or other persons. We'll take a short break on this note and we'll be right back.
We are the future, we are the dream, we are the nation, we are part of this. Yes, we are so amazing, that's the least we shall be. At the heart of the nation, changing history.
Welcome to this segment of the program, Reality and You, on Television Nigeria. And I am Priscilla, a worm, and we're going to be discussing a very important topic today, which of course is human trafficking. And here I have a very special guest in the house. He is a prolific writer, he is a professional sculptor, and of course a public affairs analyst. His name is Mr. Anikwachi Ago. So you're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Priscilla.
All right. For the benefit of the layman who may be watching and, to afford a better understanding of the topic, I would like you to elucidate the term human trafficking.
The term human trafficking is the illegal trafficking persons, that's movement of people, and for the specific purpose of exploitation. So that is criminal in most countries of the world, and a lot of people are involved in curbing the situation. And the type of people that are trafficked are often the vulnerable people in the society. We talk about women and children, and usually these people find themselves in sometimes life-threatening situation, and sometimes it's as a result of poverty. So people cash in on these situations and exploit them, and a lot of fraud, a lot of coercion is involved in doing that. So anybody can be trafficked. I said women and children. Okay. Men are also, men can also be trafficked.
Okay, now considering the clandestine nature of human trafficking, who are these traffickers? How can they be identified? I'm sure they're not having any mark or tag on them to spot them out easily that, oh, this person is a trafficker. So how can we identify these traffickers?
The traffickers are not people that wear masks. They are not masked. They are just people like, you and me.
Yeah, obviously.
Some of them are celebrities. Some of them are people that are respectable members of the society. Some of them are even family members. And, I said sometimes people take cash in on situations like poverty. The very common example that, happen in most places in Nigeria, in most villages where there is poverty. You see people coming from the city looking good, and sometimes it's even the parents who have the children that, go to them knowing the situation at home and try to make them, help them, So you talk to a relative sometimes and ask for help. Sometimes these people come in pretending that all is well and then ask for your child, in order to take that child to the city for education and, to make such a child to have a better life. But sadly, it doesn't all end well.
Sure.
Such situations, you have people that, are tricked to the city, and when they come to the city, you find out that even the education that was promised is no longer, it's not part of it. You find some of these children or girls, especially girls, they pick them up and then subject them to terrible conditions of, that involve exploitation. And that is where it's usually very difficult for people to to say, oh, this is a trafficker.
All right, and now we hear of cases like this, missing persons and all of that. And, a lot of people some of them tell their loved ones, oh, I'm traveling to a particular place and somebody's taking me to a particular country to do some certain things, and then they give all they have, for this purpose. I would like to know, who are those persons who are likely to be vulnerable to this act? Who are those people that could fall victim of human trafficking?
We have a situation in Nigeria where, despite all our natural resources, people will tell you that Nigeria is blessed, and that is not a lie. But you find a situation where, because of the inability of government to perform that primary responsibility, there is poverty in the land. With the fact that with this problem of, with the proliferation of the media, you watch films, you learn about what is happening in other places. And when you look at the media, you look at films, you look at Europe and some other parts of the world, the place, they just, the images you see, give you the impression that things are moving on well over there. And then you see you also hear about, or sometimes you see curated pictures, people posing, sending you pictures of, taken in, abroad, and then you look at them and you feel like, oh, all is well over there, and you want to go there. Sometimes you find people wanting to do everything, even when they are not even educated, they just want to go abroad. To do what sometimes? And then you wonder, what are you going to do? But let me just get there first. Because the idea is that the pasture is greener over there. And that is part of the problem we have. And if government can perform that primary responsibility, then the problem would have been half solved.
Sure.
Because the people trafficked, if you take a kind of census of the people trafficked, the movement of trafficked persons across the world, is usually from the usually poor places, poor countries of the world, to fairly or better economies. So poverty is number one cause of this.
I was going to ask you, what are the causes of human trafficking? So since you are on that, let's continue with that.
Yeah, it's poverty. I say poverty because it is poverty that inflicts you with a sense of desperation. Even when you're being told that all is not well over there, you say, no, don't worry, my own case will be different. When I get there, maybe one magic will happen or something, and a miracle, I will have a miracle, a breakthrough, and all will be well.
What is the modus operandi of these traffickers? Because I know they have a way or a procedure, there's a way they operate. So how do these traffickers operate?
I look at two F's: fraud and force. Fraud involves deception. You come and paint a picture of what is not in existence anywhere. You paint a picture, about how the person, somebody who is not even qualified, how you're going to get the person a job in one professional salon when you get there, and the person may not even have any qualification to do that. Then there is this fetish aspect of it. You must have heard about these syndicates, these traffickers involving juju, that's
Fetish
powers, where you are forced to take oaths,
Wow.
oath of secrecy, so that no matter what is happening over there,
You don't speak
you
out.
don't speak out. So that is the clandestine nature of this illicit criminal venture act, So they get you, they make sure they gag you, because that's a form of, gagging you and then making sure that you don't speak out. And then when you get there, that's when the situation will dawn on you, and then you begin your life of servitude and suffering. And then most times when the people get there, they seize their documents that they acquired at very inflated cost, thousands of dollars or pounds. They get you, they seize your documents, and then you become a prisoner. So it's usual, and when you get there, some of the trafficked persons, on getting to their destinations, find out that all is not what they have been promised. And that's usually most of them react by trying to fight back on, trying to, disagree with the conditions and all that. Then that is when the force is applied. And the force could be anything. It could be beating, it could be, torture, it could be anything. It could be starving.
Okay, now
until you're subdued.
Okay, to eradicate human trafficking in Nigeria, let's talk about Nigeria. To eradicate human trafficking, I believe that the government has to be actively involved in this. So I would like to know, how involved is the government in this menace or scourge?
Okay, the involvement of government is very important, is key. And there are existing laws. Thank God that we have some laws in Nigeria through the effort of Clef. Sometime in 2003, in July 2003, they sponsored a bill to Parliament, and that bill was eventually passed, and the NAPTIP became an agency of government. So they sponsored that bill for the establishment of National Agency for Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP. And then till now, that agency has been working, and they've done a lot, actually. But I think it shouldn't just be in the area of enforcement of the laws. I think government should be very, very proactive. Okay. And that is, what do you do with the teeming number of people that are, descending into abject poverty? And if you look at the lifestyle of, the government officials, if you place that side by side with the ravaging poverty that we have in various parts of the country, then you will understand that something needs to be done.
Okay.
And it should be at the institutional level. Recently, I came in contact with a news item that talked about how prisons in Holland are beginning to close down. I tried to investigate a little more into that story, and I found that in Holland, for example, you find government ministers going to work with bicycle. So that means government is run at minimal cost. They spend less and invest more on the people. So because they invest on the people, then there is less poverty in the land. So I think our government, starting from the local to the state and to the federal level, they should invest more on the people. And in some countries, I'm talking about government being proactive. In some countries, actually, there is this safety net, against, to protect people from abject poverty. So there is usually a form of handout given to citizens who are not employed.
Okay. Does it have to be across borders for it to be termed human trafficking?
No, it's happening here. Every day. People move people from one side of the country to another. Okay. Let me start with, in secondary school they used to say something about rural-urban migration. Mm-hmm. Why do people move from the rural areas to the urban areas? Because the infrastructure, the amenities that you should have in the rural areas most times are not there. Better schools, good roads, electricity, and other pipe-borne water and so on. They are not there. Now people try to move to where these things are.
Thank you very much. On that note, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. This is still Reality and You, and we're discussing human trafficking. Stay tuned. All right, you're welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is still Reality and You. And on this segment, we're discussing a very important topic, human trafficking, and I have a special guest in the house who is discussing this with me. He is a writer, a prolific writer, a professional sculptor, and of course a public affairs analyst. He is Mr. Enekwachi Agbo. Okay, so you were still talking about the last question.
Yeah, about whether trafficking can be local. Yes, because if you look at in Nigeria, you find some people, let me put it this way, you find some people moving that are from specific parts of this country, at a time, maybe because of poverty, you find people moving from that part of the country to go and do houseboy kind of job in the cities. So in some other parts of the country, people move from areas where you may say there was more poverty to other places. Usually you could say from the rural to the urban areas. Then engage in prostitution and so there is a local trafficking ring, in fact, and it's quite. In fact, let me also say this: Nigeria is a transit. Has a kind of transit because people move from neighboring countries, bring people here to other countries, even from Togo, countries like Togo, Ghana. They move people. In fact, sometimes you find police and NACTIP arresting children, getting, apprehending people who are engaging in that trafficking of persons to work in some parts of Nigeria.
And now, when you were speaking, I discovered you talked about just women and children being victims. Is it that the men are excluded, boys, they excluded, they are not victims? They can't fall victim of human trafficking?
Well, women, I mentioned women and children because women and children, their case is most times more pronounced. But men are also trafficked.
Okay.
You have men who are also deceived into traveling abroad, and sometimes their own is even is terrible.
Wow.
I don't know if you've heard about people traveling, being deceived, and they travel abroad and they engage in a harvesting of organs. Have you heard
My
about
goodness.
harvesting of kidney, selling, their internal organs and all that? It's terrible, but that is one of the desperate levels that people could descend to when you get to that some of these countries and you're you are faced with the reality. So you fall into desperate measures. And people do that, and then what kind of life do you? And then the women that go into all this, you hear about prostitution. There is another one that's pornography. Is becoming rampant. And then who are these women? Most of them are, victims of trafficking. They take them from their places where they don't have support. You're moved from Nigeria because if certain things are happening in Nigeria, if you're a Nigerian and you live in Nigeria, if you have issues, it's easy for you to find people to talk to. And those people will form a kind of support around you and help you get over your problem. And then there is a lot of violence, drug.
And these people, at the end of the day, when they are rescued and brought back to the country, they will be traumatized because of the experiences they've gone through. And, some of these people have exhausted all they have, all the monies they've had, just to make sure that they embarked on this trip and, all of that. And they're starting life afresh. They're obviously, it's just like the case study of those who were brought back from Libya. After that, we've not heard anything about them. I would like to know specifically what is the government doing to empower these people, specific things that the government is doing to empower these people.
You see, the tragedy is that most times when these people are brought back, when they are returned or repatriated, they come back to meet the very conditions that force them out. The most frustrating aspect of that is that they also find out that there is no serious, plan, no organized plan to make sure that these people are well taken care of. You just have all this kind of lip service, you hear people, government officials coming to welcome them and then make some political statements about how they will be settled and all that. But after that, do we have follow-ups? Do we have concrete plan of engagement, to make sure that these people are reintegrated properly into the society? I watched one of such repatriations some years back, and the young man that was brought back to Nigeria told the cameraman, one of the journalists covering the event, he was being interviewed, he said, well, that now that they've brought him back from Libya, so what is he going to be doing in Nigeria? And that he just wants to say it to the hearing of everybody, that he's going back. That he's planning to go back, and if they turn him back again, that he will still go back until he's able to cross to Europe. So that is how desperate the situation is.
Okay, finally, what would be your advice to people out there regarding this matter?
Well, I think it's something that everybody should make sure that we work together to, to kill. We need to kill it. We need to love each other, because if you love somebody, you wouldn't go to the level of such, level of exploitation. And then lets people help each other. Like there are, in our traditional environment, there is what we have an apprenticeship. You get people to learn work from you, and after that, you can settle the person. That's one nice way of, getting people to help instead of outright exploitation.
Okay.
So you could settle people, give them skill,
All right.
and the society continues to be
Thank
better
you
for it.
so much for coming on the program. Thank you for doing justice to the matter. You're welcome. I hope next time when we need you around, you will honor our
It's my pleasure.
invitation.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Okay, that was Mr. Enekwachi Ago doing justice to the matter, human trafficking. Please stay safe, be security conscious until I come your way next time. This is Reality and You. I am Priscilla. Bye for now.